Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can believe it, we have been so blessed that we get 10 weeks in a row of House of the Dragon episodes, the greatest television show of all time. It already is. We don't need to sugarcoat it. And that means 10 weeks of duo content with everybody's friend, EliteAri.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Another week, another dragon thing, and here I am.
Well, he doesn't sound very excited, but you were telling me just before we started here, and I told you to save it for when we were recording for the YouTube audience.
Yep.
Chad has not said hello to YouTube yet. Very disappointed in chat, shaking my head. I wanted you to remind you to bring up that you thought, I said that maybe there wasn't as much to talk about this episode, but you're saying there is a lot to talk about this episode. And I think, this is probably a result of, I feel like to somebody that doesn't know where all of this is going, this episode might have been a lot more exciting. Not that it wasn't extremely exciting for me. I was still bumping around having the time of my life, very excited for all the things. But there's a lot of revelations, a lot of development of where we're going and things like that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
But overall thoughts, I guess, is where we start with these things. How did you feel about today's episode?
This is great. This is like better than last episode. Perfect. Like,
wow.
I was fully in. I don't know. I think maybe because I know all the characters now, and I knew all the names, going in. It's so great. I know what everyone's talking about when they're saying certain characters. It's great. I don't know. I just thought this was so good. Like, this felt like an episode that you'd get like way into a season where like things are heating up and you're like getting towards a climax, sort of. Like, it really felt like it was like a mid-season kind of thing, but it was great.
We do have a lot to go through. I'm not even talking about the review, but in terms of content for this season. So yes, things are happening, and they're happening pretty fast, and it's pretty fun. Very fun. I sound like I'm down on the episode. What's going on? Your boy Damon was a lot more likable this episode, I will say. Are we going to go chronologically? I think maybe we have to, because I feel like this episode was...
We got an opening. Let's talk about the opening.
Oh yes, we did get the opening. I predicted this a few weeks ago. I was like, when the music plays on the first episode and it's the same theme song, even though I don't really, the Game of Thrones theme song is not one of my all-time favorites or anything, but I'm like, we're all gonna get the soy boy chills and all pump our fists in the air like we're Star Wars fans. And I feel like it was lessened a little bit because it wasn't last week, but still, when it happened, I did tweet and I was like, theme song. All exclamation points. It was actually up on binge 2 or 3 minutes before it was supposed to be, so I feel like I tweeted that before people were in the know. But then I paused it a bunch.
Probably thought you saw the leak.
Oh yes, it did leak, huh? I did see that yesterday, and I did think about it, and I was like, I'll just wait. It'll be cool. I want to watch it in HD. I paid for fucking binge for a goddamn reason. It was for this goddamn fucking show, all right? I can wait, but I could have maybe continued scripting my video earlier. My video that didn't come out, Ari. Who would imagine such a thing?
Hey, it's all right. You got next week.
Yes, the
you
video
can delay
concept,
it till the end of the season.
The video concept still works if it's about the first 2 episodes, right? It's going to be called. I already have a title. House of the Dragon came out swinging. What a title! It could mean anything.
Wow. That could work for the first 4 episodes, right?
It could if we
want
to
before the halfway point.
If we want to delay it. But yes, hopefully it'll be out this week. But anyway, fuck that. Fuck videos. We did get an intro. The intro itself, the visuals were kind of confusing the first time through.
Still confusing to me.
Yeah,
I don't like. I obviously I noticed the blood. It's everywhere. And is it going through Valyria? Is like what I got from it?
I guess it kind of looks like Viserys' fucking Lego set. Other people made that joke, and I'm kind of grossed out that I made it again. Gotta come up with original things. But obviously, there's blood and fire everywhere because the Targaryen words are fire and blood. That's the name of the book. Oh my goodness, it all ties in.
Wow,
what brand synchronicity. But yeah, they're scrolling through things. They didn't really have like houses on because they were falling into a bunch of things, and there was like symbols on top of the things that the blood was like rushing to. Or maybe I just didn't watch it enough, and it was like a bunch of references, but it just seemed like vague crowns and things.
I'm
like
sure
that.
it was references.
Yeah,
but it completely went over my head. I didn't get any single reference.
But yeah, it looks cool. The blood looks really cool. It's fun. It's cool. It's good enough. I assume it's not going to change at all because the first one, the first show's one would change somewhat with what we were looking at. I know, these look like some vague fucking symbols I'm looking at. They're going through like, there were some house thingies on the thingy that just passed. All right, maybe. I'm sure we'll get a million videos if you want to watch them. That'll be intro screen explained, and we'll go frame by frame. Then we got some fucking crabs eating some blokes. This is something we didn't talk about last time because they do drop the crab feeder in the first episode. There was a few things. I guess I should bring these up now because we got kind of cut off at the end. We were fucking around a little bit too much, and by we I mean me, before we actually started. We didn't really talk about Rhaenys and Corlys's kids, who were shown briefly, who I wanted to say something about and allude to in Ominous Foreboding. But obviously we got a lot more of Rhaenyra in this episode, which we will definitely get into. But that and the crab feeder stuff, a lot of the very initial scene we didn't talk a lot about last time. But yes, the crab feeder and the free cities are backing him, and he's fucking Corlys over the most because he profits off ship routes, and the ship routes that go right through the Narrow Sea, and he's cutting them off and pirating people. You know anything about pirates, Mr. EliteAri?
I've seen a show about pirates. I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, everybody's favorite pirate show. But yes, I don't know. Any thoughts on the ominous crab thingies that are going on? Kind of creepy.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah, they were eating people. And sometimes I just forget how much gore they show on this show. But
after
I don't know.
episode?
Like I remember hearing it. I thought this was way worse than anything last time.
You're lying.
Even the birth thing.
Maybe
when you see the crab eating someone who's alive and they're like eating through their flesh.
What about cutting over a woman that's begging not to be cut open? That's pretty gross.
Well, imagine if instead of cutting it open, you had a bunch of crabs eating.
What about
into
sticking
her?
your hands into the C-section thingy and the blood coming out of her? I don't know about this.
All right, you know what? That's pretty bad. Now that I think about it, but
the crabs were definitely gross.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we got the mention last episode. And I remember that stuck with me. I was like, oh, interesting, a crab feeder. But I thought it was just like a bit of world building. But here we are, actually seeing stuff.
We seem to be declaring war on this man, independent of the crown in the last scene. But this is a developing story here on House of the Dragon. Corlys comes marching in, and this is actually another narrative through line because we do get a lot of Corlys in this episode. It was interesting that he wasn't really in the first episode because I don't know if you know this, but one of the spin-off shows that is supposedly in development is a Corlys show. So obviously they have big ambitions for Corlys here. It'd probably be a prequel. Pretty wild. So I shouldn't talk about if there's a potentiality of a Corlys sequel because that would spoil whether or not he survives. So
I actually have a point about spoilers because when I finished last episode, I was like, you know what, I'm not that worried about spoilers. But then it came to the scene in this episode where they're all on like that bridge in Dragonstone, and I'm like, oh, anything could happen here. And I was like, thank God I don't know anything about all these characters. It was just so much tension built through that. But anyway.
Interesting. Okay, we'll talk about that soon when we get to it. But yes, I will do my bestest to avoid the spoilers. But yes, Corlys there's a running through line of this in the episode between Corlys and the King where he comes in here and Otto has a line where he says just because you're on the King's Council does not mean you're the King's equal. And then later they seem to reconcile, and then he offers Rhaenyra, and then later obviously Rhaenyra is denied, and then he is so spurned he runs off to Daemon. Invites Daemon to him. But presumably he's left King's Landing because he's on his seat at Driftmark. They say that in that scene, which is right next to Dragonstone. Well, not right next to Dragonstone, but it's another island near Dragonstone.
All right, that explains a lot. I just assumed he went to Dragonstone and was meeting with Daemon.
No,
I know he mentioned that throne, and I was like, what is this? Am I meant to understand what this throne is? But
that's his seat.
Yeah, that explains it.
But yes, I guess Corlys' backstory briefly, which they kind of allude to here. I don't know if they'll explain it further. It's not like a spoiler or anything. It's just House Valerian was not very strong before Corlys. They were still always like shipmen or whatever, but they are now currently like the richest house in all of Westeros because Corlys went and did a lot of trading and got a bunch of riches and stuff. So him being a self-made man in comparison to like a king or something where everything's like handed to them, at least from his eyes. is definitely like part of his characterization and everything. He even has the line to Daemon that where like he says that the Velaryons are basically the second sons of the realm or whatever, because they are like House Targaryen but way lamer because they don't have any dragons. Even though his kids can ride dragons, but that's only because they're half Targaryen. They mention that, right? They mention Rhaenyra can ride it. Well, she's talking about dragons a lot. It's not a reveal or anything. So now I'm hyper conscious about the spoilers, which is a good thing, I guess. But
yeah, very good.
Poor Corlys can't ride a dragon. But yes, there is a through line in here of Corlys sort of being like, man, fuck this king, dude. And it is interesting that Corlys, I don't know, I feel like, do you like the king? Because last time you actually said you didn't like Corlys, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I still think, like, even I like Viserys right now more than Corlys. Corlys is kind of being irritable a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you feel about?
I think I've like come around on all the characters. I think I like them all now. Like I definitely like Corlys. Like I know at the end when he got like somewhat betrayed by Viserys, you know, and he's like, you're not gonna marry my daughter. I was on his side. I'm like, yeah, go to Daemon, you know, go cause some havoc.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. I think I like them all. And Viserys, he annoyed me a little bit with his like. I mean, I don't know if I'm meant to be annoyed by him or like, because obviously he's very foolish. Like he's being tricked here, right? Like to marry what's her name, Alicent.
Yes, Alicent.
It kind of feels like that. Like he's falling into someone's.
It is a bit, yeah.
If it is Otto, then like Otto's idea of like, oh, I want to be the next.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, I don't know. It's something going on. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Because there is a scene later where Otto finds out that Corlys offered Rhaenyra, and he's like, Lord Corlys has overstepped. We'll see to this. This is no good. Because clearly his plan is for Alicent to be the next queen. And he's much subtler about it. Like he's never going to come out and say it. He's never going to actually offer Alicent. He's going to send her to Viserys and then basically make Viserys think that it's his choice. So he is much more sly in that sense.
And Viserys is falling for it. The fool.
But it's. I feel like I feel like coming into the show, like the idea was definitely that Otto is this Tywin character, and he is tricking Viserys into doing everything, and Viserys just doesn't care. Now Viserys is a lot more Robert Baratheon in the books. Like he's drunk all the time, which he's not really sad in the books. Like if you look up like fan art that came out before the show of Viserys the First, it's like him with a big fat belly, like laughing and drinking and things like that, and kicking Mushroom down the stairs. Mushroom's not in the show yet. That's vagaries. That's some of that foreshadowing moment that you don't get, Ari, that everybody else is laughing about right now. It might not be exciting because Mushroom might not be in the show.
Disappointing then.
Yes. I guess I'll just... Anyway, moving on from Mushroom. But he's like very much... He's supposed to be Robert because also like he lost his lady love. Emma's dead, and Emma dies a lot earlier in the book because Rhaenyra is like 8 or whatever. It actually is interesting in this dynamic where it's like choosing between Alicent and Laenor. No, Laenor's the brother, Laena. Creative with the names, these fellas. No Laenor in this episode, but Laena, yes. It's interesting because Laena is still the same age. She's very young, and it's very creepy and all that's implied. But there's two things about that's different from the book. Alicent is the only character, I think, that I can think of that's been aged down, because she is 10 years older than Rhaenyra in the books. And they're not like friends growing up or anything. This has all been invented for the show. And it is a very interesting change that I do like a lot. And also, like, when Viserys married Emma Arryn, who is his ex-wife, for everybody in the audience that doesn't remember, she was 12 and he was not, and they are not the same age. And it's kind of, and like, she dies very young also through all of her pregnancies, and it's kind of implied that, like, well, he kind of fucked her up by getting her pregnant at like 12 and then 13 and then 14 and then over again. And it's not like a mutual sort of loving situation, and that could be part of why Rhaenyra sort of is mad at him and things like that. But that being a change here it's interesting because in the book it's like, oh, when he chooses Alicent, he seems like, oh, this very not a pedophile. He's like into Alicent, and Alicent is like 22, and it's like, oh. Whereas in this, they actually do say that Rhaenyra is 15 in the episode.
Indeed.
And Alicent is around her age, so... still a bit yikesy. But it
Yep.
is interesting
I
that
mean,
change.
that's what is like the adulthood in their society? Is it
I
like
th-
14, like what they said, or is it
Oh, there
older?
actually
Or
is a line in the book about this, about Rob, and how Rob like hits that age, and
ah,
Catelyn has to deal with that. And I think it might be 15, but girls get
yeah,
married
yeah,
off as soon as they can have kids, um, and they
yeah.
can get betrothed way before that, right? Because Sansa was betrothed to Joffrey before that, and her having her first period is the
Mm,
big moment. She tries to throw the bed into the fire, and the Hound catches her. Good scene.
yep.
Um,
What a show.
yes. And Marcella's like 8 when she's betrothed to oh my god, what's his name? Ari. What's the Dornish prince names? Trystane, I think, is the one that she's. Yes, it is
God, I don't
Trystane.
remember.
Don't worry, I have to remember everything. All right. Or my ego will
Yeah,
not
you're the expert
suffice.
here.
But yes. The age thing is just kind of interesting as a change.
Yeah, I mean, I think like more important than the age is just the relationship between Rhaenyra and Alicent. Because if they weren't
Indeed,
friends in the book, that's crazy. Because I feel like that's
it's a
to
big
me that seems
change.
like why she's so upset here. Because it's like
Yes.
my dad is like gonna marry my friend. Like
Well,
that's such a
there's
weird like.
there's a thing in the book of like Alicent basically trying to be Rhaenyra's like new mum, and so that's sort of where some of the
Mm,
conflict between them comes from. Like, there's like this big thing where on their wedding night or whatever, she kisses Rhaenyra on the forehead and says, "I'll be your new mother" or something, and it's like it's supposed in the book it's like celebrate. Oh, what a good person Miss Alicent is, but
mm,
clearly it's like. That's gonna piss her off. She is not gonna like that. Her mum's died 6 months later. Her father's remarrying, potentially fucking up her inheritance and everything like that.
mm.
And this bitch is basically dancing in her face. Lamau, I'm your mummy now. I think it is interesting because Alicent in Fire and Blood is very clearly a Cersei parallel, as Otto is a Tywin parallel, and it'll be interesting if she develops into that, or maybe part of the decision in aging her down and having her be Rhaenyra's friend is to try and get away from the Cersei parallel. Um, Though it's more of a
Mm.
book Cersei parallel than a show Cersei parallel, and there are a
The
little bit of
Cersei parallel I felt here was with Rhaenys in that speech she gave to
really.
Rhaenyra.
I got big
Yeah,
Queen of
kind of.
Thorns vibes from Rhaenys. It's interesting because what you said,
Interesting.
and this will tie into Rhaenys, because I think I am most
Mm-hmm.
invested in Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship, and I think I might be
Mm-hmm.
disappointed in the short term because I feel like we're going to be skipping time ahead next episode. I guess that's the most vague of
I mean,
spoilers.
6 months in this episode.
Yes.
It's crazy.
You didn't watch the preview?
I haven't seen the preview. I also haven't seen the inside thing. I forgot to watch that.
I did watch the inside
Um,
thing. You don't want spoilers from the preview, right?
I'm not too fussed, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Alicent is might have a baby bump in the next
Oh,
one, so we're
interesting.
skipping
Okay, okay.
quite a bit ahead. Because I feel like if we weren't skipping ahead, we would get like a Rhaenyra Alicent scene of them talking like immediately, like the next day. But I feel like when they're not
Mm,
going to speak for like another month or like another bunch of
mm,
months, and then we're going to see it. So it is kind of like I wish I could see. Like I feel like. I feel like it's their relationship is savable right now, and it might not be in a few months. And I don't know. It is
mm.
interesting that those two are like the relationship I'm most invested in right now. Though Daemon and Rhaenyra is certainly interesting right now. But to tie into what you were saying about Rhaenys, was I think Rhaenys might be my favorite character. I don't know. I just like her disposition. I guess it felt very Queen of
Mm.
Thorns to me. It felt very like sort of over it yet. There's this characters in like every show where it's like they pretend to be like over the whole situation, but clearly they very much still care, and there's going to come a moment where they sort of turn up and show that they still care. Rhaenys
Mm.
feels sort of like she's over it. You're not going to be queen. These boys, they just won't let us have our shit, and there's going to be a moment where she's like, no, I want my shit. And she's going to turn
Yeah.
the fuck up. And you can, I don't know, there's sort of, she feels like the most Game of Thrones character, as in like original show character.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
In this series. Another thing, and I wanted to almost bring this up earlier, was in this show they settle a lot, or they and this is more book accurate, I think. They fall more into the formalities of conversation. Especially when regarding things like even the Otto line we were talking about earlier too, Corliss, about like, oh, just because you're on the king's council doesn't mean you're the king's equal or something, and like those formalities of like you can't speak to your king, and Viserys has even said a few times like, I am your king, you will do as I say. I feel like original Game of Thrones, like this is really only a show thing, especially with Tyrion and sort of Varys and characters like this. It was always like formalities were never cared for, and they were sort of like self-awarely made fun of constantly, and that was part of like the humor of the show, is like Tyrion disregarding Joffrey being king at every turn and openly disrespecting him, and like even when he slaps him when he's the prince or whatever, and like Ned constantly like ridiculing, not ridiculing, but making jokes with Robert that like no one else would get away with because they're friends or whatever. He'd be like, oh, that's what you say to your king, Robert would say in the stern voice, and then he would laugh, or even in the first episode where he walks up all sullenly and then they do the big hug. There's a little subversion in the comedy, which I think is absent in the show. I think it works a lot in Game of Thrones. I think it's terrible towards the back end when Tyrion is trying to recreate that magic with like Missandei and Grey Worm, and it's like, oh, this is awful. But shitting on late stage Game of Thrones, oh my god, I'm entirely original today. But it is interesting in the writing changes. I still feel like they fundamentally feel like different tones, which is bad for like, I think continuity or chronology or whatever. Not chronology, but consistency, I guess. Yeah, but I like it. I like them independently. I like them.
I feel like it's less the writing and more the types of characters that there are, right? Like, if you, like, for instance, last episode, you had a Daemon on the small council who kind of didn't really care about, I don't know, like, he'd speak to the king truthfully, right? With his mind. But, I don't know, like, if you had more characters like that, all the characters right now are just, like, sucking up to the king, right? Maybe later on we'll meet some more, I don't know.
It feels less human in a sense. I guess it's because we really don't know as much about these small council characters. Like they gave, it is Lionel Strong, the strong dude, his own scene with the king in this episode, which was interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
But even then we didn't. Like, we meet Littlefinger and Varys all before... no, I think the first time we meet Varys... actually, I think the first time we meet Varys and Littlefinger and Renly is in a small council scene. But I feel like we get a lot more of insight into each one of them characters individually than we do for most of the small council here, at least the three on the other side.
Yep.
But yeah, there's sort of like a more... We see them when they aren't at the meeting, so we see them...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I mean, especially about the small council. Like, we get scenes with Otto, right?
Yeah.
We get scenes with Corlys. But other than that, like, we don't really see them individually. Viserys.
It's but it's especially like Otto is especially like the kind of the key example of this, because we really don't get insight into Otto when we get scenes. Well, we do, but we don't get like personal insight into Otto when he's like in scenes with Alicent or other scenes. Like we don't really get.
He doesn't give a monologue about his backstory.
No. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's more. And even thinking of like Tywin, where like you really don't get any like insight into how he is interpersonally or things like that. I don't know. Tywin's got like more presence, and I don't know. It is oddly different in ways where I like neither more. They are both just very interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, it feels a lot. This show is a lot subtler in some ways too. But yeah. I don't know. I know where we're going with that. Heath linked an image in chat, did he? I just looked at chat for the first time. I wonder if this is the one I was thinking of. Is this the one from the wiki page? Open in Firefox, I can do now. Oh, it is. Yes, it is. Big fat Viserys holding his belly, ready to laugh. Look at him.
Beautiful, just like the show.
Yes, he seems a lot sadder in the show. But what scene were we even up to? We were just talking generally about this scene. It is very... This was another sort of thing... Part of what we were just talking about was like Rhaenyra immediately getting shut down. When she tried
Wait, what scene are we talking about?
Just the first one still. The first
okay.
scene. And Otto like immediately shuts her down. Which is interesting, because if Otto is the Tywin parallel... and Rhaenyra clearly, especially show Rhaenyra, has a lot of Arya in her. It's kind of a parallel to Arya being Tywin's cupbearer, and Tywin would like listen to that. Those are actually the most like personal, and sometimes the cool. And those were all original too. Those weren't in the books because Tywin was never at Harrenhal. Well, I think Tywin might have been at Harrenhal, but he never was with Arya in the books.
Yep.
But it's like, because he talks about teaching Jaime to read and how Jaime is dyslexic and how that annoyed him, but he also sat with him like every night to teach Jaime how to read. And then he like compared Arya to Cersei. And there were a bunch of little cute like backstory moments with Tywin in those scenes. But obviously none of this. There was another thing I pointed out, and I pointed this out to Minty, was that I was very surprised with how much like Rhaenyra Otto stuff was in this episode of sort of. And I guess it might just be for this because he shuts her down here and then she saves the day later, and it's sort of like her showing him. But obviously they are two big characters in this story, and I never really thought of them interacting too much. So it was interesting that we got some of that. But yeah, but Rhaenyra gets shut down. Corlys is still mad about it. Oh, when they say free cities, Ari, can you explain what you think the free cities are, just to test your knowledge here?
Oh no. Well, I assumed it was I mean, across the Narrow Sea, there's like Marine. I think Marine was a free city.
Marine is indeed
the other...
absolutely, tremendously not a free city. Slavery everywhere in Marine.
Then why...
Slavers Bay is where Marine is.
Okay. So I assumed it was like an ironic title where it's like... But I guess it's completely not. I got no idea then what the free cities are.
They are free cities in response to Slavers Bay, which is not a free... group of cities.
Well, that shows how much I know about this story. So,
well, I prompted this question not only to humiliate you, but to fill you in on the details. Now, Bravos is a free city, the free city of Bravos, you may remember.
Perfect.
A house of black and white. Arya's training, running through the cities. Everybody, whenever they would say Bravos in the first show, would say the free city of Bravos. And all the cities along the eastern coast, which I don't expect you to remember which cities are on the eastern coast. Slavers Bay is way west.
Absolutely not.
No, wait. Way more east. It's like a little enclave near, and that's near where all the Dothraki hang out, and near Karth, which is where Dany is in season 2, and then further east to that is Ashion and stuff like that. But there's Pentos. Now I actually looked this up because I thought it was like Pentos, Bravos, then Muir, Lyce, and what's the other one right on the coast? I'm not asking you, Arias, if you know. I'm asking myself to buy myself some time. There's because they talk about the Triumphant, which is Muir, Tyrosh was the other one, but now I forgot one of the ones I already named, and Lyce.
Marine.
Marine is in Slavers Bay with Yunkai and Astapor, right? Not free cities.
Yes, I remember those, yes.
But yes, we hang out in there with Dany sometimes. But Pentos is where Dany is in the very first episode with the fat dude who was Varys' partner in crime, but then the show cut him immediately after season 1, and kind of a big mistake. But Varys tried to kill Daenerys, but then he acts like in season 6 that he was with her the whole time. Isn't that a plot hole? Doesn't matter. No shitting on the last show too much, all right? But yes, there's like 6 of them because Qohor and Norvos both count. Norvos is only relevant really because it is the Doran Martell, the Prince of Dorne's wife, was from Norvos, but she isn't in the show at all, so I don't expect you to remember that. And Qohor is some crazy place where they kill people and stuff. There's like some demon shit going on there. But yes, there's
so
like
all
6
these cities
cities
are coming together to feed people to crabs.
Vaguely because they usually say the Triumvirate, which is not all of them. So Bravos, they might all sign off on this generally because they kind of want to fuck with Westeros potentially, but it seems like, and because the Stepstones, which is a bunch of strips of islands, is more so connected. Like Bravos is way up north, so it's nowhere near the Stepstones. The 3 cities will be Lyce, Tyrosh, and Myr, I think. They will be the main ones.
All right.
That we're fighting. But we're only fighting them by proxy because the Crab Feeder is backed by them and he's a bunch of pirate blokes. But they are only really supporting him because he's fucking with Westeros and Corlys, really. But free cities, not Marine. Good
now
to know.
I know. Thank God.
I think they might be. They actually will be a little relevant. So I was going to say that probably won't matter and you don't really need to know that. But they kind of will be. Maybe more so in later seasons. But then we get the issue of the Kingsguard spot. Ryan Redwine has died. I think they just say Lord Ryan, and I'm assuming it's Ryan Redwine because he is a famous old Kingsguard. He was commander, but now Rhaenyra's friend from the first episode, who is Harold Westerling. I brought that up last time. Did you remember, Ari? He's bald and he's got
he's the guard, right? Yeah.
He accompanies her when she's doing this. He is now commander, and they go to choose a new one. They present a few people from houses. There's a Crackle, there's a Mallister, there's a Tali that they don't bring up. There's the first one was House Karen, which was one I didn't immediately know. I had heard the name, but I wasn't like, I don't know which region this person is from, but the Karens are from the Stormlands. I looked it up. Mallister is from the Riverlands. Crackle is from the Riverlands. And Cole is... Because they keep saying that he's Dornish, but he's from the Stormlands, but he's from the Dornish marshes, because House Dondarrion, remember Beric Dondarrion, his house is like the lowest, the most southernest house in like the Baratheon place, the Stormlands. So it's right near Dorne, and they're always fighting with Dorne through the mountains up there. And he's had some fighting experience, so that's why Rhaenyra picks him. Also, she might have a crush on him because he's very pretty. She gets giddy when she talks to him and everything. It is interesting, again, that Otto is in this scene. Also, we see Rhaenys looking on from afar.
That was a bit weird that Otto was there.
Yeah, he shows up. Like, they seem to have been taught. Now, there is an interesting implication besides this kind of being maybe a mini fuck-up, because he asks her to leave so they could talk about things, but then he's immediately there. Now, the interesting implication could be Corlys, like, told him to get out, so he could sneakily propose Lena. Though, no, he doesn't do that until later. Because Rhaenyra says later that she knows that when they kick her out, they're actually talking about her father remarrying. She has a line like that later. But my theory doesn't make any sense because Viserys is like surprised when they bring up Lena later. And I don't know who else they could have been proposing.
You know what? Maybe she just took a long time to choose the guard, so then he had to come and help.
Maybe it was a long walk and she stopped to take a piss, and then she was mad about it.
And then Otto ran.
And then
he wanted to check up.
Otto's a faceless man, right? He appears and then he unappears. And flipping around.
All right, we solved it.
Indeed. Anything to say about this one? Kristen Cole is back. He's clearly going to be a character in this.
Yep. Let me just say, I'm a genius, and I knew that he was going to be the one. When when they were saying, all these, before they even brought up his name, like, he's going to be here. Like, who else is going to be like a candidate? Why are we focusing on this?
Now,
so I'm just a genius. But
now, in sort of against Rhaenyra's interest here, if she is crushing on Mr. Kristen Cole, is, if you'll remember, the Kingsguard supposed to be a bunch of celibates.
Yeah, because of Jaime, right? I remember that.
Didn't exactly
not because of Jaime, but
so it might not stop old Kristen Cole. There is a scene of them in the woods together talking in the trailer, so how interesting. More will be developed on this front. Rhaenys is in the background of all these shots. Interesting. She's watching. Then we cut to, I guess we're going exactly chronologically, though we've already talked about a bunch of later scenes. We get the first Alicent to Viserys scene here. They're talking about the dragons. He drops a dragon. What foreshadowing that is. A dropping dragon cracks on ground. What's going to happen? Is there going to be some sort of civil war coming, Ari? Is that what we're in for here?
Nah, no way. I think we're all good. Actually, on this scene, I have like a general note about this episode and this scene, which is that I feel like there was a lot of talk about Valyria, which I found pretty interesting. Now, I was just trying to think of like why this is the case, and like if they're trying to somehow parallel what happened to Valyria, like with the Doom, and what's happening now to Westeros, and I guess what happens eventually with Westeros as well.
Yeah.
Or even just to the Targaryens in Westeros, rather
again,
than
dropping
Westeros
the
itself.
dragon, it could.
Yeah.
That. It's also kind of a neat way for exposition, I guess. Though I don't know. I don't think we're ever getting.
We're getting so much. Like, do you? Yeah. Are we going to be getting? Are we going to see Valyria in this show? Even. What do you think?
Well, like you mean a flashback, or like
absolutely.
I don't think we'll ever get a flashback because it's like supposed to be super advanced and stuff. And there are a lot of theories about what Valyria looks like. Hold on, there's actually a million ways we can go with the Valyria thing, and a million little fucking dumb meme stories from books I can tell you. Just first, did you catch that young Rhaenyra is Australian? Because I didn't know that until I looked it up.
Oh,
she was born in your neck of the woods in Sydney, and she's 1 year older than me.
Oh wow!
And I was looking.
No, I did. Like I have seen interviews with her now, so I
was watching some. I
completely forgot that she had an Australian accent, but yeah.
I find that sometimes I don't clock the Australian accent as much, and I feel like I know. Am I listening to too many Americans too often, Ari? Am I losing it?
Yep, definitely.
But yes. But then Miss Hightower here, not Australian, she's from England, but she was born in Ari 2003. Can you believe this? And she's 19. Whenever somebody younger than me is doing something, and I'm like, oh, this isn't like a literal child, I'm like, oh my God. That's kind of annoying. What am I doing with my life? Cringe. She's 1 year younger than my younger brother. Yikes.
Crazy.
Yes, but that's some wacky stuff. Now, on Valyria.
I remember thinking...
go ahead.
Let's not... We're going to get tangents.
No, I want to hear it.
It's such a tangent. All right, I remember thinking, back when I was in like... I don't know, it's like very young. I remember thinking, like seeing an ad on TV for the year 2004, and it was like an advertisement for like how your insurance for your TV will last until 2004, and that was like a really long time away.
Oh my God.
But yeah, anyway, and it stuck with me to this day. I'm like, oh, 2004, that's like ages away from now. But
yeah, I feel like 2020 was that year for me growing up. It was like, because I remember there would be ads like, we're gonna have cancer solved by 2020 if you donate to this link or something. And I'm like, and cancer kind of still around in 2020.
They tricked you, didn't they? Yeah. My goodness.
But we actually went to Valyria in the old show. Do you remember this?
Yes, that's okay. So let me. Is this where there were the grayscale people?
Indeed, Tyrion goes through and Jorah gets grayscale. And we see like it's all fucked up, and Drogon, it goes there sometimes, and Tyrion sees Drogon the first time flying over there. Now there is a story in Fire and Blood from about 50 years before the Dance of Dragons, where one of the princesses, who also gets spurned from the throne, it was actually one of the old king's daughters, the old king from the prologue. Maybe Baela. She was actually the rider of Balerion, the biggest dragon, who Viserys was the last rider of. Viserys here. And she went to Valyria, and she basically pissed off because she was mad at a bunch of shit or whatever. Jaehaerys was being a prick, and she probably was older than Viserys, Rhaenys' father, and she wasn't going to be the fucking heir or whatever. So they're all pissed off. She leaves on Balerion and supposedly goes to Valyria, and then comes back and her skin melts off, and she has some sort of disease. And Balerion's got a big fucking wound in his head or something that, like, the Maester says, like, oh, nothing conceivably that could exist could have damaged Balerion in this way, because he's got like a massive gash or something. So it's a big scary mystery on what was so giant, or is there some sort of reminiscent giant dragon living in Valyria or something that hurt Balerion, because he's the biggest dragon of all time. He's got this big fucking scar on him. What happened? She comes back, she's got like thick, like worms crawling under her skin, that's described as. Then her skin like falls off, and they try to save her, and she dies, like screaming. And it's like, man, something's happening in Valyria. There's some big mysteries there that we still have to uncover. Euron in the books also supposedly has gone to Valyria, and he's come back all fucked up. He's missing an eye. He's got like a whole Valyrian seal armor set. That would have been so cool to put in the show. And that's like such a dumb show thing to put in, but they
didn't have time.
They made Euron a crazy pirate who screams a lot instead of this crazy...
Enough about Game of Thrones.
Anyway, there's a bunch of Valyria stuff. So on your Valyria flashback, I don't think we're ever going to get that, because there's still a bunch of that would like give away a bunch of things I think that they don't want to give away yet. On to Alicent.
Well, okay, yeah.
Did you want to say something?
No, we got a lot to get through. Let's enough tangents.
Do. Alicent, she's doing this. Now, interestingly, on the Inside the Episode thing, Alicent's actress has a line where she says that, like, she thinks Alicent is being entirely genuine in her sort of approach with Viserys, and that she actually is, like there's no manipulation on her end, but it's sort of being...
Why is she picking at her fingers?
This is an interesting thing, because I don't think the picking at the fingers thing is in the book either. I think that's a new trait for the show. It plays into some things later on, so I guess I can't really say anything about that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this will be a motif for her character in perpetuity. Although maybe they'll, when they flash forward to older girl, she'll have conquered it or something. But clearly she's a very nervous sort of person. I think the impression we're supposed to get is that she's like the most thoughtful. Like she's clearly trying to like fix Rhaenyra's relationship with Viserys in this episode, and then she's trying to like help Viserys, and she's also trying to help out her father. And like everything's kind of backfiring on her, and everybody around her is growing to dislike her, especially obviously Rhaenyra by the end. So it might be like the well-intentioned girl fall from grace thing that we're doing with Alicent here. But yeah, that was an interesting thing. The actress said, but right after this is the Rhaenyra scene in the Sept. So did you have anything more to say about this Viserys one? This first one.
Wait, which scene specifically?
It's just the it's the drop dragon.
Oh yeah. No, they talk about Valyria. No, not really. No.
Yeah. So what about this next one in the Sept?
Sept. Nope, nothing on that.
Yeah,
I guess it felt pretty straightforward.
It's
She's
them helping each other out, I guess, or her. It is interesting that there's sort of this cycle of like the Hightower family went through everything sort of the Targaryen family is going through, like 6 months before the show started. So, I guess this might play into some sort of jealousy on Rhaenyra's part of like. Alicent seems like she's like 6 months ahead of her in sort of maturity and life experience and things like that might come in later. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a cute scene to sort of go into their relationship and flesh it out. Do we want to keep going chronologically? I guess we kind of should, because the next one is Corlys and Rhaenys approaching Viserys,
right?
Yeah, and offering Laenor basically. Kind of saying that his rule is being shitty and he looks weak and that they should do the war and everything like that, and he's sort of not falling for it. It is... how do we feel about Viserys at this point from your perspective? Do you... Because Daemon also calls him weak in the first episode, and it's hard to figure out whether or not the show thinks he's weak or not. Because he doesn't want to fight wars, but like that's kind of like a good thing, you'd think, but...
I think I got the gist, like my impression of him and I guess the Targaryens in general, like their storyline is the fact that during peacetime you get complacent and then that leads to another war, right? Yeah. So like it's less than him not being strong and him just getting used to living in peacetime is what I feel like.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Because Rhaenys even says that in the first episode, like it's been 70 years since they had a proper war or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's part of it.
I guess it's for Viserys in general in this episode. What I thought was interesting is that basically everyone is telling him to remarry, and they're all approving and saying it's probably the best choice to remarry. Corlys's and Rhaenys' daughter. And it to me just feels like the whole time he's just hoping for one person who will tell him that he doesn't have to do it, basically. Yeah. And I don't know. To me, it's just like he's not strong enough to make his own decision. He really wants, like, he wants to. He will listen to everyone basically, but he won't make his own strong like decision.
Yeah. Haha, you said strong and he was talking to Strong about it. Ari, what a god.
I'm a genius.
It is interesting because the first episode I talked about Judy quite a bit. And they still do bring up Judy a lot and sort of I think this might even be in the next episode preview, but it's Viserys talking to Rhaenyra, basically telling her that she has to get married, as well. And like sort of saying that like, oh, the line is fragile right now. There's just like the two of us and Daemon basically. And if Daemon were to be the heir, then it probably would start a war because Otto would do some shit and everything like that. So it sort of is his duty to remarry. And it seems like it's sort of the duty versus love thing again, right? Because he clearly likes Alicent. I don't know if he's in love with her per se right now. He clearly prefers her. And it's also like, personally, obviously, he not a pedophile, does not want to marry the 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And sort of like Alicent is clearly the better option here. for him personally. It's sort of a choice between there. So when he's going to people like that, I think he knows. I don't think necessarily he wants somebody to tell him to marry Alicent and sort of like validate him. I think he's just like fishing through his own like thought process. I think he knows everything like that strong dude is going to say in that conversation, and he's already thought through all that. But it's just like, okay, like it's just like sort of through a thought process. And it is interesting because in that scene specifically, Viserys is kind of more not mean, but assertive, I guess, in that conversation. It's not like with like the Otto convers. I don't know. Even with the Otto conversation, it always feels like they're like bickering. And it really goes against like the characterization of Otto's just manipulating everything, or him. Like interpersonally, it's not really like that, where Viserys is just like an idiot getting played. He clearly is self-aware enough to understand what's going on. But sort of like if Otto wants Alicent to be the queen, and it's not really like their wants are not clashing right now. I don't know. The Judy thing is interesting. Of like, what is the choice here? I don't know. Is there a bad choice? Is there a good choice? Like, you're going to piss somebody off no matter what? I don't know. What a crazy thing, being king. Can you imagine?
No, terrible. And that's what Otto said, right? He's like, I don't envy you.
Yes, he does
but
say
then
that.
Was he being truthful? I don't know.
That's kind of the next scene, where he puts his hands in the maggots. Well, actually, there's the first Rhaenyra Viserys scene, but I don't think we need to go too chronologically. I like talking more generally about things. We can talk about this then. This fucking maester, right? This maester be bought and sold. I know
yes.
it already.
Yes.
He's
I got it. Yeah.
I think, because obviously there's the big big maester conspiracy that every single maester is in on this big thing to fuck the Targaryens, and this is like a big theory. I think it might just be the Pycelle-Tywin relationship, where it might just be Otto has this maester, the Grand Maester, in his pocket.
Really? Is that? I thought the complete opposite.
Really?
Like, at least is what I got from that. You're talking about the scene with the maggots, right?
Yeah, because he does say that he should go with Rhaenyra, but he looks at Otto every time.
Yeah, he gives him a look.
Now the look could be fuck you, I'm doing this, or the look could be Otto said you should go with Rhaenyra, so it doesn't look like, because Otto even says this outright, where he's like, oh, Corlys is overstepped. Now the understanding, I think, is that if Otto offers his daughter while he's still Hand of the King, then it'll seem like a massive overreach of power, and everybody else will be pissed off about it. But if Viserys is the first one to come to the table with the offer, then it's okay, because it doesn't look like Otto is manipulating everybody. But that's exactly what he's trying to manipulate everybody into not thinking. So if the Maester is still on his side, it could have been he told the Maester to pretend not to be on his side, to sort of be false opposition. Or maybe the Maester does actually have his own. He is an independent actor here.
So I guess the way I took it is that in that scene you've got Otto, basically like he wants to push Alicent, but he's not going to say it. So he's like, he's overreached. Blah blah. You don't. He's
basically saying don't make this decision right now.
Yeah, and then you've got the Maester who's saying, oh, you know what? Actually, it's a good decision. And then the Maester looks to Otto, like this look of like, Otto, say what you're meant to say at this point. So that Otto can then kind of, I don't know, kind of bring up his past about his wife and everything, so that reminds Viserys of Alicent, right? Like, to me, it just felt like the Maester was the one in control in that situation over Otto. But I don't know.
Oh, interesting. So like Otto, yeah okay. I guess
like Otto just wants to push his agenda, but then the Maester is like, do it more cleverly, I don't know. It's a bit, maybe there's nothing going on in this scene at all, but that's the way I took it. And I'm sure it'll change as the season goes on and they explain it.
There's definitely something going on, because we sort of do have the dramatic irony in the scene of knowing about the like what Otto wants, because we see the scene last episode. It was interesting because I thought maybe Otto would pretend to not like that Alicent was hanging out with the king so much to like pretend that he doesn't want that to be happening, or that he would be weirded out by that or something. But there's like a scene where he walks in and he's completely fine and everybody seems to know about it. Because when initially, I think it's the second scene when Viserys and Alicent are sitting down, and like the Kingsguard dude comes in and he's clearly somebody's coming in. I was like, oh, this would be interesting if Rhaenyra came in now and saw this and was like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, it wasn't. I think it was Otto, right? It was Otto in that scene.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, because he was
he looks
leaving.
at her for a second and then like looks at Viserys.
Yeah. Well, I think we should talk about the Rhaenyra scene specifically now.
Okay.
It's so there's so many weird ways to go in this direction, because obviously, I don't know. I know Rhaenyra as a character. I know what's going to come. A lot of this, I feel like this is actually something, I don't know if I brought this up the first time, but there is sort of an advantage for me, and for the show with me, rather, where it's like, it almost feels like this isn't my first watching of the show. It's like, oh, I like when a scene starts, I'm like, oh, I know the significance of this scene. I know vaguely what's going to happen in this scene. It's like, and it sort of makes it so that it's a rewatch on like the first watch through, which is like the greatest thing in the world for me, because I love rewatches and I go on about that all the time. So it's like, oh, I don't know, being able to prepare yourself for like the emotional, like where the scene is going, and be able to like, I don't know, lets you deconstruct things, I guess, a little bit more and feel things a little bit more. So obviously I'm like, oh, Lane is here. This is going to be cool. Let's see what they do here. And she looks 8. It's even creepier, but she doesn't really look 12. She's so short.
It was a great reveal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was expecting, like an older. I mean, I didn't see her last episode if she was in there, but
she was
the reveal here. She's a little girl. I was like, man, all right, I wasn't expecting this.
They show her at the tourney. Her and her brother are sitting next to each other and they're watching, and making faces when people are getting killed. But yeah, obviously I knew that it was going to be that girl, but not if you're not in the know, it'll be like, oh, Lena, like 12. I remember being 12. You're like basically like you kind of look like a teenager. No, she looks fucking 8 years old. And it's very interesting. The parents and sort of they both like go to Viserys saying like, oh, this is a good, like, yes, marry our daughter. And it is interesting that they both have rather different reactions to this. Like Corlys is waiting on the stairs and watches them walk away, and we see this long shot. And he's just sort of like smiling. He's like, this is the best option. Like, oh my god, we win. Fucking Valarian's going to be in the throne line again. And then we see Rhaenys later, and she's like, and Rhaenyra is like, are you okay with this? And she's like, of course I'm not. But then she goes into a monologue about the order of things. I know, and it was very interesting. That scene felt, I don't know what it feels like. I want to say Black Sails just because we're both watching it right now, but it feels, there's something about monologues like that where it's like, it kind of does feel more original Game of Thrones in the way we were talking about before, where it's sort of like, in this show, a lot of the times people don't admit to like the informal, obvious things. Like, obviously I'm not okay with this. You sort of feel like characters in this show when Rhaenyra says, are you okay with this? Rhaenys is supposed to go, yes, and pretend that she is, but instead it's sort of this moment of honesty, but then moving on from the honesty immediately. I don't know, it's hard to explain. There's something specifically about it, and about Rhaenys in that scene, because it really is the first Rhaenys scene we get proper in the show. Well, I guess earlier when she's talking to Viserys with Corlys, but it's the... I don't want to move on to that scene right away. Is there anything on the Laenor thing? It's like her... Oh, and it's like clearly... Oh, it's kind of cute, because initially she wants to talk about dragons, and she wants to talk about Balerion. She's clearly like fascinated by dragons and things like that, which will come back into play. She's big into these dragons. She's got her own dragon. I'm sure we'll meet... I was going to say her. I don't think dragons have genders, but later on. But it's sort of like cute, the phases the scene goes through. Initially, she's just sort of like being a kid and is excited to talk to the king about like dragons and things like that. And they mentioned that Vhagar has flown off. Vhagar is the only surviving of the original three dragons.
Am I supposed to know that, or was that like a? Because I was like, wow, that's really
I didn't even know that. I thought it was in the dragon pit. Vhagar will come back. Somebody will ride Vhagar. Vagary. I guess that's kind of a spoiler. She's like, I said she again. it's off there. I guess it comes back. We will see Vhagar.
Oh, that's definitely a spoiler.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Interesting.
a dragon's gonna show up, right? It's not the
Yeah,
worst
I mean,
spoiler in
to
the
me,
world.
the when I heard of that story of Vhagar, how they're
It's like
so there's like
Drogon,
rumors
right?
of them coasting. Yeah, I
Afterwards.
was thinking of Drogon. I'm like, yeah, just like Drogon. But you know
Um,
what? If they come back, I don't know, it's a bit different. Or is that setting up what's gonna happen with Drogon eventually in that Jon Snow sequel series?
yeah. You just
Mm.
what a weird idea. You
Yep.
just know he's gonna have to go and find that dragon and fucking ride it or whatever.
Yep.
Fuck the battery.
Anyway.
I didn't get the first warning yet, but it's low. We got some things to talk about. Let me turn this fucking brightness down. The phases of the scene. So at first she's like a kid, and then she has like the rehearsed speech her father told her, and they split it to show that the parents are different. It is interesting. They are doing remarkably well to characterize each character independently, because they do that in a way I didn't think they were going to with Mysaria and Daemon later on, where clearly they're not even entirely on the same side, and here it's showing that Corlys and Rhaenys, who seem like the most together couple in the show, like they're not even on this. They clearly have different priorities here. But yeah, then she has like her rehearsed speech from Corlys about having lots of kids and being a good wife or something, and how important it is to bind their houses or something. Clearly stuff that she probably doesn't understand. And then obviously she's had the talk about with her mother about marital duties and waiting until she's 14 and things like that. And because you feel for her, and she comes off very cute in the scene and very likable, but you also like you very much feel through Viserys of like, oh, this is just like not the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Whereas
What a terrible situation. Yeah.
And he does very well in here. Because there could have been like they could have gone in a direction of like, this is medieval times. He's like not even that weirded out by this, but clearly, even later in the strong scene, he's like, she's 12, and that's like a big thing he brings up. But it's like it's very clearly sort of like a father-daughter conversation here, or a fatherly conversation here, which is good. The rainy scene, I feel like we talked about this. I feel like this is probably the best scene in the episode. It's clear Rhaenys kind of wants to coach Rhaenyra here. She kind of there's obviously some like, this should have been me, fuck this girl. And there's also sort of this would be cool if this would actually happen. I kind of want to coach this girl type thing here. Did you get any vibes like that, or what do you think of Rhaenys so far, I guess?
She just felt like I don't know, like there's a bit of
because you said
Cersei in the
Cersei
fact
earlier,
that they're both
right?
women. Well, okay, the reason I feel like she reminded me of Cersei is that scene that Cersei has with Sansa during
I just
the
thought
Blackwater.
about that.
Yeah, and how they're like talking about how the men will do all these things and stuff, and it feels very similar here, where they're talking about, oh, the men won't have a woman on the Iron Throne. I don't know. To me, it just feels like she's someone who thinks there's no hope of like any of Rhaenyra's dreams coming true, and she's just trying to speak truth to her here. But at the same time, she doesn't care that much. I don't think. She's already given up. I don't know.
The
Is that
it's definitely not as
completely
mean.
wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely not as mean as the Cersei Sansa conversation. That's more about executing power as a woman. The big difference is obviously both these girls have dragons, and Rhaenys kind of is probably the most experienced dragon rider in the entire world. So and Cersei's not very good at fighting, and that's kind of the whole point of that. Like, because that monologue is all about how like she can seduce men sometimes, but Stannis is not into it, and he's gonna burn her alive if he wins, and all that. But yeah, I definitely see it's sort of like the older woman like looking down on the younger woman and being like, you don't know how this shit works. They're gonna fuck you in a million different ways. And trying to part advice, and I guess trying to be helpful, but not trying to be like
but
vulnerable
deep down
at all.
thinking it's not gonna. Yeah, well, to me, it feels like she's trying to be helpful, but she's like, why? Like, it's be as hopeful as you want, but it's not gonna work out.
Yeah. Well, that's Rhaenys for the episode. I guess we should talk about the Daemon stuff, just because, again, battery, oh no.
That's a big part of this episode.
All right, because honestly, I don't know if I have much to say about this. I guess the dragon egg situation is a big like plot point.
Crazy. At first I didn't believe it when they're like, oh, he came, he took the egg, and
Oh,
he's
the bit
like
where
taunting the king.
Rhaenyra is very mad because it's the one she chose for Balon's for Prince
Yeah.
Balon is really cute, and her talking in the other language is a very good piece of acting.
Oh,
Um,
that's a great like to have the dragon tamer speak in I would
yeah,
assume
High
Valyrian.
Valyrian
Like it's
again,
such a
yeah,
great such a great like thing.
yeah.
Anyway.
But you take the lead on this one because I don't know, I don't really have that much to say about this. But the
Well,
most I would have
firstly
to say would
on
be the mysterious
yeah.
stuff afterwards. But yeah, go ahead.
I guess on the scene where like I said, I just didn't believe that Daemon did this. Like I thought he was auto framing Daemon for this because then it would create a war and maybe he'll be able to seize power somehow. But
Mm.
no, Daemon came, he took the egg. It's been 6 months. Maybe his resentment has grown since the last time we saw him. Um, and yeah, that's all I really
Yeah.
thought of for that opening scene.
Do
But then we
you
actually go to Dragonstone.
just quickly on the because do you understand why you like took the dragon egg specifically for the kid?
Well, okay. My assumption, based on what was said, is that it's like a tradition for
Yeah,
Targaryens, right? They have them when the kid's being born. They have them born near a dragon egg, um,
they put a dragon egg in the
which
cradle. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I assumed. And I mean, it makes sense that he would want that for his child, but at the same time, he could have chosen another one, if there are other ones.
Yes.
Um,
I don't think he knew that it was like Rhaenyra's chosen egg. I think he just took one. But the point is that usually that's how dragon eggs hatch, is that they hatch with kids and then that becomes the kid's dragon if the kid is going to become a dragon rider.
right.
They usually like are born at the similar times and they hatch when the kid is still a baby and they bond that way. So it's
Mm,
clearly Daemon trying to get more power here, like his kid, and that means he'll have two dragons and be more of a threat. Viserys isn't even pregnant here, which is interesting.
yeah.
This we were talking about this earlier a little bit with Otto not being very mask off. This is like the meanest he is. Like he is very mean about Viserys here. She's like she's a whore. She's terrible.
Mm.
This is like the worst thing you could
Oh,
possibly do and everything like that. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
I just thought of like to me, I thought it was interesting that Otto volunteered to go. Like that was a
yeah.
strange because it's like what does he benefit from going himself? Like all he does is put himself in more danger. I guess he if he was being a good hand of the king, then yeah, he's saving the king from danger. But I don't know. I got the sense that he's out there more for himself than the king.
Did he also not
So
think
I
the
just thought, yeah,
dragon was going to be there? Like, did he not have a
I
plan?
don't know. Yeah, I
Um,
guess.
maybe he wanted, like, theoretically, you take the dragon out of it. Maybe he wanted to, like, incite some sort of violent situation here, and he thought he could win and kill Daemon or something.
I guess. Yeah,
Christian Cole is
it's
right
very
there.
dangerous.
And he beat Daemon, so I guess he
Yeah, but yeah,
theoretically
I
they
thought
might
I
win.
also another thing I thought was interesting is that Damon, if I'm understanding correctly, Damon took the what was it 200 or 2000
Yeah, he took some
Kings,
of
not
them. Yeah,
Kingsguard, the City Watch. Yeah, which I was like, oh, I wonder when that happened. Like, does that mean that King's Landing has a lot less like people on the streets
yeah,
now? Like, it's a strange thing to think about.
yeah. But
But
they're loyal to him, so they left. But yeah, I assume they just got
yeah, I
new
guess.
guards in King's Landing in the months that followed. But Rhaenyra then shows up. It's a cool shot. The long shot of the dragons kind of interacting.
So cool.
They definitely hung out a lot when they were in the dragon pit or whatever. So they're not like itching to fight each other or whatever. But her coming in, it is a very neat play. Like Daemon, and this again, Black Sails meme. It felt very. Daemon has been giving me Vayne vibes a little bit. And the
Mm,
fact that he is sort of just made to sort of cuck out here in the way Vayne is kind of for Eleanor a bunch, obviously in a different, this is a nephew,
yeah.
whatever the other thing, uncle relationship. Um, hmm. But it is interesting that Rhaenyra basically knows, like clearly Daemon is like threatening Otto here. He's like, come and get it and I'll fucking stab you, prick. But he's not going to
Mm,
stab Rhaenyra. And he would probably stab anybody else there, anybody that would have come, even maybe his brother at this point, but not Rhaenyra. And it sort of shows Daemon's lack of tact here because his whole like he's upset because Rhaenyra has taken his spot, but it clearly shows here that
yeah.
he's not willing to like kill her. So this is all kind of just like he couldn't do
Frustrating.
it. Yeah, like he's sort of in a stalemate here where he doesn't have as much power as he wants, because he does not have like, not the self power, but the self motivation, I guess, to go through with it. Like, even if he does hate his brother right now and would be willing to kill his brother, he's not willing to kill his niece.
So they're gonna get married. That's my genius prediction.
Oh yeah, that's
they had
your
that
prediction?
scene together. They're all there looking at each other, and they like
Daemon's
had
got
their
a
speaking in
wife.
their own language.
You can't have two wives. It's not allowed. I guess
yeah,
he'll
that's a
have to
good point.
kill
Yeah,
his...
you know what? Hey, what do you mean? He's having a second wife here.
Oh yeah, he
his
was
whole
going to
thing.
totally do that, huh? But
no, just
everybody
get a
was
third
very
wife.
mad
There you
about
go.
that.
Yeah, true.
And I don't
No,
know if the
I don't know.
king...
I don't actually think they're gonna get married, but I did get that sense when I was like watching. I was like, oh, you know what? They're really framing these two together as like an interesting pairing. But I don't know.
Yes. I do want to talk more about predictions and stuff. Is there any other? Because that's it. Then we have the Viserys scene. A lot of people are making fun of her voice. Apparently, it is not her natural voice, so I guess it is allowed to be made fun of.
What do you mean, not her natural voice?
Like this is an
Oh,
accent
like she's putting on an
on,
accent?
yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like they made an AI voice or something. Like what? Okay,
Almost sounds like that.
All right.
I don't know. It's not as bad as people are saying. People are very... She had this in the first episode too.
It didn't bother me at all.
Minty went off on this. He was like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I was cringing the whole time. I can't believe they had her have this voice." I think he was half meaning, but
I
he
didn't
might not
notice.
be.
I got no
And
idea.
people on Twitter were very mad. Again, Black Sails memes. Obviously, I'm getting Max vibes here because she's a brown lady with an accent, and she's
Oh,
a
boy.
prostitute, and she's clearly had a terrible life.
Yep.
It is interesting her monologue here about how she's like, Daemon is like her freedom from fearing everything there is to fear in life, because he can like protect her and won't sell her off and things like that. It's almost cute, but they're clearly at odds here. This is a developing story.
Yep.
Did I just get the second battery warning? I have 12% of the battery left. We have to wrap this fucking shit up. How? There's no way we've been going for an hour and a half. We have been going for an hour and 18 minutes. Felt like 15 fucking minutes. Time flies when you
It's
talk.
House of the Dragon.
We get the strong thing. It's good. Then we get the reveal scene. Did you realize that it was going to be Alicent the whole time?
reveal?
Or were you
Oh, I thought that scene was so tense. I really liked that. Where you start off that scene looking at Viserys out the window, and then you slowly focus with all the people coming in. I thought it was just so well done.
Yeah.
But like I assumed it would have to be, because he seemed so nervous about it. To me, it seemed like he has to not pick Corlys's daughter. But I didn't know if it was going to be Alicent or if it would be something else entirely. So I was still on the edge of my seat. Like, what's he going to say?
Yeah. Well, it's Alicent. The drama.
Yep. Which is terrible. Like for everyone. Like the only person who wins here is Otto. It's crazy. Because obviously Rhaenyra's going to hate him. Corlys is going to hate him. I mean, Viserys, it's going to make Rhaenyra hate him. Which I don't think that's going to work out for him in the long run. So I don't know. To me, it just still feels like a terrible situation that this happened here.
The added drama is interesting. Again, the Rhaenys, Alicent stuff is like the most interesting stuff to me, so I'm super looking forward to it. There's also Viserys yelling at Rhaenyra when she comes back because he's a worried dad. How cute. And then they sort of reconcile after that, and she's like, oh, he says like how much he loves their mother, well, not her mother, his wife. And Rhaenyra is very happy to hear this. It's pretty cute. Minty actually did point this out to me, and it wasn't something I had thought of, where it was like Alicent is responsible for them like rekindling here, and then also responsible for what I assume in the next episode is going to be them having like bigger problems. So it's sort of like Alicent being responsible for sort of all of this at the same time, them getting back together and them breaking up again. Oh my god, the drama. Interesting stuff. But quickly, do we have any predictions moving forward outside of Daemon and Rhaenyra not getting married? How are we developing this? How do we get to the big fight? What are the sides going to be?
This,
You've got like
this
2
crab
minutes.
person's going to be important.
Yes.
Which I guess a quick question about that. At the end, you see someone who is like scary looking or something.
I assume that's him.
Is it? Okay, because I was like, is that him or is that like some injured person that I'm just like not seeing them properly in this like weird framing that they've got? But anyway, so that was a bit weird. But I think that'll be important, obviously. But what's like an actual prediction? I feel like Viserys is he's gonna be dead in a few episodes because he's got that infected finger now. He's got his back that's infected. Um, so he's on the verge of death any
It's
episode
kind
now.
of got to happen, right, for
Oh,
the Civil
absolutely.
War to happen.
Yeah,
So,
but I feel like it's gonna be very soon. Like if he died next episode, I wouldn't be
if he's
surprised.
the
Like
Robert
that's how soon I
parallel,
think. Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, yeah, yeah. Um,
um, I don't
I don't
know.
know if
We
I
got
can
like
predict
2 minutes,
it. I
so
feel
like there's
like
a many more
this
things. But yeah,
going into this episode, I had absolutely no idea where it was gonna go. I think going forward, I have like a little bit more of an idea than I did going into this one. Like it
yeah.
just seems like it's more like everything's building up towards like we have the clearer sides here, and I don't know, it's more.
The
I'm
sides
more
are
invested, but
developing.
it's
Yeah,
also like a bit clearer, I think. Yeah,
Daemon and Corlys are on a side. Um,
yeah,
Clearly, the High Towers and Viserys are on a side.
yep.
Developing as we continue.
And Marine is staying out of it.
I don't think we're ever going to see Marine in this show. My
How
apologies.
sad.
These free cities, we might see him. I assume they'll probably do Bravos, just because it's got the
Yep.
most recognition.
And we'll see the faceless men.
Yes. I don't know about that one. Maybe they'll get him
Yeah,
in
I don't know.
somehow.
Yeah, in the flashback to Valyria, we'll have the faceless men
Well,
there taking it down or whatever. It's gonna be great.
the faceless men might have been responsible for the doom. Did they say that in the
Indeed.
show? They must.
No, I don't think so, but I've heard
You've
that
heard
theory
that,
before.
yeah. I feel like that's in every like faceless man explained video.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, sadly, YouTube audience, that's where we have to end it because fucking my battery will not cooperate. My goodness. But for all the YouTube audience, we'll be back next week. I can't believe it. It's already done. The episode's already out. The discussion's already done. I'm disgusted
Video
thoroughly.
soon.
While I'm doing my Nuzlocke tomorrow on stream, which you can come and see if you want. Maybe we can talk some more about certain things. But with that all being said, support links in the description below. Thanks.